current paradigm of the economy that we are so completely immersed in, people, by the time they reach even their mid-30s, once they've started their career, their mid-career, it's very, very difficult to change. So if we have to bring change, then who should we be speaking to? Between the age of 8 and 12 is where ideas really seed. Ideas about what is life, what is the meaning of success. Success means lots of money, several cars, a large house, travel abroad, the luxuries of life. And everyone aspires to that. Oh, are you expecting us to give up things? It's about embracing a different way of seeing, of looking, of being, of doing things. It's embracing that. It's not giving up. The kids who are under 10 today, by the time they are in their mid-30s, mid-40s, it'll be a different world. We have known about climate change for almost 75 years. And if we have still willingly gone down that path and trying to greenwash and trying to cover up, then we are stupid. But the soil is something that most of us do not know about. And it's actually one of the most important ecosystems on the planet. We are all alive because of soil. Planet's fine. It's we who have to look after ourselves, actually. And the only way, in my mind, the only way we can do it is to align ourselves with the way the planet functions. Carbon credits, that is something that I just don't trust. That's carbon credits. So that's really actually trying to, sometimes I think we're actually trying to bargain with the planet. How can we be that stupid? The human body's got made up of only a small number of chemicals. That's all we are, a bunch of chemicals and lots of water. Our phones are 84 elements on the periodic table. We are less than half of that. All of us, if we looked around, we probably need just about 30% of what we actually have. The ecosystem services that come out of as a combination and as a result of all these things working together is so humongous. It's so humongous. It's actually humbling and mind-blowing.
Jenny, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here once again. I think we spoke about tourism the last time, and it was really eye-opening for me. The conversations of climate change agenda in the urban spaces are becoming increasingly popular in the sense that we understand we need to do certain things, and there's change that needs to be happening in how we consume, how we do things. But again, it comes back to awareness and things like that. You wrote a book, The Magical Everything.
Yes.
But you wanted to write it for the children. Why did you want to do this?
Okay, first, let me say thank you for having me here, Sathya. It's a pleasure to be back talking about another angle of the same issue. And I enjoyed doing that. So I wrote for children. I've been actually with my lighting company, Sustainable, where I've been using waste and trying to make the entire process and the company completely circular. In that journey, which is more than 25 years now, I have been doing a lot of self-study and reading about various aspects. And I'm actually a great believer that you can't look at one aspect of any issue. And climate change actually covers absolutely everything. In the sense, you want to talk about feminism, you want to talk about justice, you want to talk about equality. It's all there in climate change. Everything, climate change, because we are actually all in this together. And what I have, I think in this 27-year journey that I've been doing this, what I probably began to feel is that, we are so, the current paradigm of the economy that we are so completely immersed in, people, by the time they reach even their mid-30s, once they've started their career, their mid-career, it's very, very difficult to change. Very difficult to change. So if we have to bring change, then who should we be speaking to? Or rather, okay, let me take another step back. Why are we even in this paradigm today? Is because our education leads us into this. We study the way we study all subjects, the way our school systems are structured, is to prepare us for a career in this paradigm of the economy, in this paradigm. And those ideas, now interacting with children who are quite young through my book, I realized that I think between the age of 8 and 12 is where ideas really seed.
Mm-hmm.
Ideas about what is life, what is the meaning of success, what is the meaning of success. A simple thing like that can lead in so many different directions for a growing child. What is the meaning of success? Success means lots of money, several cars, a large house, travel abroad, the luxuries of life, and everyone aspires to that. Because so if you have to start, I feel it's very, very important that we start with children who are in end of primary school. Get them interested in, because there is no doubt in my mind that by the time the generation who is now who are under 10 today, they're going to lead a very different life. And I think if they ease themselves into that different life because of climate, it'll be a climate change. And if they embrace that life from a young and not be forced into something, because very often when you talk to people, they talk about, oh, are you expecting us to give up things? No, I'm not expecting. I mean, when I think about it, it's not about giving up things. It's about embracing a different way of seeing, of looking, of being, of doing things. It's embracing that. It's not giving up. I don't look at it as giving up.
But does this mean we are also giving up on the adult population, or is it, let me ask it this way, is it a characteristics of the current adult population that is this way? Would it be all adult populations that gets to that age are going to be that way, or you see that by doing something with the younger children, you are able to have them have a different paradigm, and they don't need to be like the current adults, because the characteristics you discovered of the current adults, that it's hard to change them after 30, that's not generally true. It is possible that if you can't change them after 30 and you are basically saying let's get the kids understand climate change and what its impacts are, maybe after 30 they won't change to something different. Is that the hypothesis here?
The world would have changed as well, since by the time, like I say, I feel the kids who are under 10 today, by the time they are in their mid-30s, mid-40s, it'll be a different world. They're going to have to deal with a very different, and they have to be ready for that. And I think one way of being ready for something is to and understand it and embrace it in your head. You have to understand what is it that, and I think so. The book was really written one in a way that I didn't talk about climate change in any kind of alarming way. I didn't want to get into the pure science of some climate change, of just talking about the science. That there's enough information out there on the net. Schools, if your teachers would do it, your parents could tell you, there's lots of information out there. What nobody, and I have got this feedback about my book from several people, what nobody tells you is how do you join all the dots? How do you look at it in a wider, more holistic manner? How do you, and for me, it's about understanding, because that's what changed me. How do you understand? Um, you've got to understand how the planet functions. What are the basic tenets of life? And part of knowing that is realizing that it's 4.5 billion years. Life started 4.5 billion years ago. These are the things I bring into my book. Started 4.5 billion years ago. It has taken 4.5 billion years of honing this entire, ecosystems, biodiversity. I mean, but all this has a very, very, very definite place in the entire story. Why biodiversity took to be the way we experience it today? It took 4.5 billion years to get here, and that was, if you want to put it in human language, it's just trial and error, evolution. So it's and so it's if we understand that, I think the moment you embrace that in your head, the humility that sets in, we've got to also approach this with some humility. We are not the most, I mean, we might be a dominant species today for various reasons, but we are not the most, I don't think we are the most intelligent or the wisest. I think we're fairly stupid in many ways.
Yeah.
We're fairly stupid in many ways. We have known about climate change for almost 75 years. And if we have still willingly gone down that path and trying to, greenwash and trying to cover up, then we are stupid. So there is an extremely unwise side to us, which which I think the reason we have become unwise is because we do not respect, we do not know how important the how the planet does it, and therefore we have no understanding and therefore no humility. Because when I started reading, I think the first thing that happened to me was I was humbled. I said, oh my God, we know nothing. And actually, that's what happens with a lot of even physics today. I think physics is getting to a point where they're saying we don't know some things. Beyond this, we cannot explain it. We don't know. And that's a very good place to be, to say we don't know, you know.
And are we expecting a different behavior because we don't know? Because we seem to think that we have everything, all the billions of years it took for the periodic table of elements to be available to us, and then all the cooking that was done for the carbon to be down there, and we just go and willy-nilly plunder it in a few decades. Maybe we need to have a lot of thinking. But coming back to this book, I can recollect this was one evening, my son was just reading the book. I had just bought it for him. He just came running down and just said, Appa, this book is a masterpiece. And that's when I wanted to know, what book is this? What are you reading? Let me just find out what it is. And I wanted to get in touch with you and see. He's never told me like that about any book. He reads all the whatever is popular, the Harry Potter, whatever else it is, right? But this small book made him sit up and take notice. Tell me about the premise of Ela and her journey. Why did you want to build this story in this way, and that makes it attractive for children?
I definitely did not want to write a pure science book or pure. It didn't. Like I said, I didn't want it to be just a primer on climate change, the science of climate change. That information, I call it information, is available everywhere. But I wanted to have for the kids to somewhere build an emotional connect. I think what is also missing in environmental education and climate education is an emotional connect with, even now in the 21st century, nature has become a destination we go to. It is not something we ever think. It's a destination we go to a jungle to sort of look at nature, in sense not even so that it doesn't even acknowledge that we are also part of it. We are very much part of it. So I wanted to, through the book, firstly, emotionally connect children to the various ecosystems. So Ela, in her, I don't want to call it a dream. It's not like, it is sort of Alice in Wonderlandish, but I don't want to call it a dream. I want to actually call it, like getting into your own higher mind, because if you've read it, then you know that she's great friends with a tree. And that is a very personal thing, in the sense when I'm in nature, I get my best ideas. When I'm sitting under a tree, and I've asked a lot of people, and they say that is also true. When you're sitting, especially in a tree, on a branch, there is a very, very different feeling, and I think somewhere in your mind, if you're open to those vibes that you're getting from this tree, things can happen. Your mind does open up. So in a way, I say that she's friends with this tree, but she and the tree are friends, and they speak to each other. And this tree said, because she has a problem of what should she be doing for her science project, the tree sends her off on this journey. So now the reader can say, okay, fine, it's a dream like Alice in Wonderland, but it's up to you. And since for me, it is part of a real journey she takes. And the fact that she is connected to this tree, she connects easily with all the other creatures she meets on this journey, in the ocean, in the forest, under the soil. Yes, that is Alice in Wonderlandish, where she shrinks and she becomes really tiny, and then she gets into the soil. And the soil, just take the soil. Forests, because they are easily accessible to us. Most of us know going to the jungle. A lot of us go into the jungle. Oceans, yes, second. The second most known ecosystem is probably the oceans, because now people have started diving, and you have Richard Attenborough taking you there with lovely, beautiful shots and stuff. But the soil is something that most of us do not know about. And it's actually one of the most important ecosystems on the planet. We are all alive because of soil. It grows our food, it stores carbon. It's an extremely important ecosystem. So it was important for me to also take her under inside the soil, so that kids, at least that and what I'm hoping to do with this book, of course, is not, you can never know everything. So it's not about telling everything. It's about hoping that kids' curiosity is tickled enough for them to decide, okay, I want to know more. And apart from I want to know more, I want them to have a feeling of complete awe, so that they feel the need to, to live in harmony with it. This protecting nature and saving the earth, sometimes I feel that's also part of our arrogance. We can't save the planet. I mean, let me make it very clear to anybody who's listening. We cannot
Yeah, I
save
don't
the
think
planet.
planet also needs the saving. It we are saving
No,
ourselves,
the
no?
planet is fine. The planet will be fine without us. It'll be very okay without us, actually. And at some point, we probably won't be here, and it'll go on its own. It's been here for 4.5 billion years. It's survived all sorts of things, volcanoes and ice ages, and it survived everything. So the planet's fine. It's we who have to look after ourselves, actually. And the only way, in my mind, the only way we can do it is to align ourselves with the way the planet functions. And that is what I want. That is a small message, but a big message that I want to bring with this book, hoping that kids decide to look for the larger, more detailed nuances of this small message, which is that we need to align.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to more people discover the journey of Ela and the silk cotton tree. But I want to expand this conversation to say we are so stupid that we don't even want to save ourselves. Kids who are 10 years old now, in the next 30 years, we are going to be in 2050. We have our carbon neutral goals set even further. So all the kids are going to be at least old like us by the time we even try to meet her. So there's a whole generation which is going to live under the illusion that we've got some net zero goals, we're going to go towards the climate, and it is so far away that's a whole generation of kids and more who are going to have to face the brunt of the music because we aren't changing the way we are doing things now. uh, how do you see this metaphor extending to the real life today? We are at business as usual. We are doing things so slowly that we don't seem to understand that we need to change faster. How do you see this landscape panning out? You're doing many things in this, no?
No, firstly, all this it is still human language, all this net zero and, buying carbon credits. I mean, that is something that I just don't trust. That's carbon credits. That's really actually trying to, sometimes I think we are actually trying to bargain with the planet. I mean, how can we be that stupid? Saying that, okay, fine, so by so and so year we will be so. And it's so easy these days, buy carbon credit and still do business as usual. You can fiddle with the numbers, and people are fiddling with the numbers at the country level. They're fiddling with numbers. So that is actually completely irrelevant to what I want to tell kids. It's totally irrelevant. You just take care of how you live, take care of that. And for instance, in my own life, in the sense, it's very difficult at my age and at my stage of life to even, I mean, I realize I try many things. How do I change first? I've tried it, and it is very difficult because there is a certain way we have to do certain things, and we are in that
Hmm.
system. It's very difficult to step out of that system. But in the few things that I can do, for instance, I don't do luxury. I don't do unnecessary travel at all. It's only to see family. I now don't plan holidays every year. I don't, at home, I'm completely zero waste in terms of water and in terms of organic matter from the house. Whereas, of course, plastic I mean, there are, you have to give it to certain recycling units and trust them that they're going to be doing the right thing, you know. But in terms of what I have control over, which is my water and organic waste, we are completely zero waste at home. Because I'm lucky enough to live out of in a panchayat area, so it is
Hmm.
through, I can control both the intake and the outflow of water. I mean, that's under my control. But what is under my control, I do, you know, in terms of
So
yeah. So
how should the rest of us look at this? So there are now you're communicating directly to the citizens. You're not in this book or anywhere else asking government do this, business do that. At some level, they all have to step up, and we have to, like you said, there is an existing way of doing things. There is a locked in nature of how we need to produce, how we need to procure, because of the supply chain and the value chains being what they are. And with your light also, you tried to change that. You said, I can do this differently. So that's a climate first business that you started almost 25 years ago, right? How do you then look at these kind of things, right? How are we going to have to discover a new set of products and services that we consume for ourselves? What are the citizens' goals in all of these things? Because you and I have worked many years ago on trying to work with citizens to see how they envision mobility, for example. We did the bus days and the mobility and all that in 2010, back when where sustainability was not even, in the horizons like it is now. There are things that, taking away from this book, it's asking kids to reimagine the future. Is there a way we can get adults to reimagine the future? Because education doesn't seem to cut it, like you said. All my educated friends are doing exactly what they are, and they can't suddenly alter everything to live like a monk. But there are a few things that can be done. Where do you see that going?
Let's not kid ourselves. In the sense, we are up against big business, big government. We're up against law, and it's so in the today, it's taken us from industrial revolution 200 years to get here anyway. It's not going to change overnight. So another reason I feel children are important, because from this bunch of kids will be our future government leaders, will be our future bureaucrats, will be future corporate heads, will be our future leaders. So, if we have a whole generation that comes up who think differently, hopefully, because all said and done, policy is important. We know that governance is important. We know policy is important. We know that the economy, the way it's structured, it's not you can't dismantle it overnight. It takes time. It takes people thinking differently. It has to start in people's heads, and which is what I feel education should do, which is why today I'm so passionate about. I mean, my book is less than a drop in the ocean. It's not even a blip. The thing is that we need to, at the larger scale, we need to start teaching. Uh, Climate change touches every subject. It's not science, only science. Physics, chemistry, geography, math, economics, especially economics. You know, so you have to actually restructure how we teach practically every subject, because everything actually impacts how we negotiate our lives as a civilization, and that has to change. So change will be slow, but change will have to come, and it's probably so. And I think one of the first things that we can, which are in our control to do, is actually to start thinking more, to think locally. This global. I'm not a believer in global either. I'm sure a lot of people will laugh at what I'm saying, but I'm not a believer that this globalized direction that we've taken in the last 30 years has really done us any good. you know it's not. In fact, people become more and more invisible, and you're just yeah. So we've got to in everything that we do in terms of our food production, our even things like sanitation, and how we manage our
Mhm.
cities. If you break it up into local areas, this larger and larger cities,
Mm.
totally in terms of work borderless. I'm not a great fan of tech either. Let me tell you,
Mhm.
because I think we've not. I mean, as much as we think technology will save us, it has a huge carbon footprint. I mean, whether you talk about green energy, firstly, is not today the way we do it. It's not fully green. It's got a huge carbon footprint. Technology has a huge carbon footprint. It's totally in technology, because it's part of the linear economy. We're just throwing out humongous amounts of. Uh, I read a very nice factoid the other day, where the human body's got made up of only a small number of chemicals. I mean, that's all we are, a bunch of chemicals and lots of water. Our phones are 84 84 elements on the periodic table. We are less than half of that, what we are
Hmm.
made up of. So, you know. So we need to actually really look closely at what we're doing, because all those and everything that we use, those materials that we use, come out of somewhere. We are not mindful of it. We are not even conscious of it. Absolutely everything that we use. Where do those materials go? How are they discarded? It's a simple fact like matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed on this planet. How many of us that remember that from school? How many of us remember? We don't. And yet we just throw, and we think that by throwing it away and somebody saying, oh, we are recycling it, that it has been taken care of. It's not been taken care of. It's
Yeah,
not been.
that's
Even when you
yeah.
incinerate, it is not. You're only changing something from one form of matter to another. That's all you're doing. And then you're overloading the atmosphere with that matter, when you do that. So we have to, for all our smartness, that's what I was saying a little earlier, for all our smartness, we are quite stupid actually. We're
In fact, that
pretty
reminds me two, three things. One is definitely when my kids say the room is clean, it is not. They didn't things didn't go away. They just hidden somewhere else. It's like how
exactly.
we clean up our black spots, right? Oh, this corner is clean, but where did that go? It's gone somewhere else. So fundamental questions of physics, of entropy and law of thermodynamics, and simple things like matters cannot be created or destroyed. These are the you don't need an IPCC report for this. The first
Exactly.
few laws of physics tell you what will happen to
Exactly.
the planet when you do certain things. But there is always pushback, right? I mean, you and I couldn't be talking to other people the way we are. We could do it in the old fashioned way. But with technology also comes the ability to afford these kind of devices in which we can talk
Yes, you and
and
talking
communicate
today,
with
and
more people.
yeah,
So that,
you and
that
I talking
evolution is
today is
there.
going. Yeah. No, technology, of course, has its uses. I'm not saying nothing is black and white. In any case, nothing is all bad or all good. I'm just saying that we have been not been mindful when we have embraced certain things in today's modern living. When we've embraced it, we have not been mindful of how it gets here, where does it go, what is it made of, and that has led to an excess of everything. I think all of us, if we looked around, we probably need just about 30% of what we actually have,
I think so.
and we don't care about it because we don't know where we've stopped thinking about where it comes from, how it's made, and where it's going. you
And
know
it's also possibly because, from my understanding of what it is, we actually don't know enough. We don't even know how we got created with so little materials. But when humans try to create the same kind of intelligence, we end up gobbling up so much of energy, so much of materials. And I think our ability to even say, how can we mimic this super efficient human being, stupid of course, but super efficient human being in trying to do AI and all that, we are unable to do that because we don't have an understanding of how we build consciousness, how we build processing, how we build our thing. We are always trying to explore creating ourselves in order to explore whatever we want to explore in the future. And I think we are so way down now in understanding all these things that we are making waste. But it is also possible that if we understand enough, the hope is the only reason we exist is if we understand more and more and more, maybe we will make it more efficiently in the future. And that's probably why people are thinking. But in the process, we are causing a lot of harm, which maybe we won't survive long enough to find out the answer of life, universe, and everything. Maybe we'll just get a 42 as an answer if we don't last long enough. It's the self-preservation is now something that's coming up ahead of us, and I think we need to get towards it. This is very enlightening for me. Where do you think this should go now? The book is a good start. I think we need a lot of books like this. No, I mean it's a
Yeah,
wonderful way of
actually,
looking at it.
the next book I want to do for children is also system thinking, because I think what we completely lack in our education, which is why none of us think about it, is to think in nothing exists by itself.
Mm.
Everything is actually part of a system that impacts both things within the system and impacts other systems. If we are able to, so that actually opens our understanding to how when we say ecosystem, what do we mean? It is a system. It is a system, and every single little thing plays a part in it. Sometimes it very often, and this is my only grouse with, say, nature conservation or nature education. You might be talking about a particular frog, that these frogs are going extinct, but and how what is we know so much about that little frog. Nobody tells us how is that frog important to my life. Until and which is why we also think that we can do something to save this frog. No, that frog is actually, if it's around, it in a way saves us. To a certain extent, the ecosystem services that come out of as a combination and as a result of all these things working together is so humongous. It's so humongous. It's actually humbling and mind blowing. When you actually look at all these little things. But at the same time, we think, we need to save this and we need to save the tiger. The tiger is actually only because it's such a glamorous animal. It probably catches the fancy of people. So you say, you have this big project that for save the tiger, but with the tiger, right down to the smallest little insect in that ecosystem plays a huge role. And that's what I try to bring out in my book, actually, how every little creature is important to the larger picture, and how dung beetles and elephants are a great team, and how earthworms, how completely like superheroes earthworms are, and creatures like them, and mycelium and fungus. I mean, these are the things that I think we as a species are just beginning to realize how important fungi is. That they are, in fact, for transport as well. I was just reading a few months ago about how, I think somewhere in Tokyo, they actually used fungus. Always tries to find the shortest route and most efficient route between points when they are. So they had used a whole fungal network to design a certain rail network or something. I mean, I've forgotten, it was a couple of years ago that I watched this. So, we are just beginning to realize the importance of fungus. That's how little we know.
On this wonderful note, I'd request all our viewers to go check out this book, The Magical Everything by Jenny Pinto, available on Amazon. I'll put up the picture here or here somewhere. So it'll be available. The link will be on the show notes as well. Thanks, Jenny, for coming on the show. Thanks for writing this book and doing such a big service. My kid loved it and I wanted to speak. So hope many other kids can read this. And
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and listening to me. Yeah, sometimes I think I sound a little
cookie.
A cookie, yeah.
We all are. Only cooks can save the world now.
Only cookie people, yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Just don't come recording now. You're Amu, finish.